I think so. On the agenda? Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you please shut your cell phones off or put them on silent so it doesn't disrupt the meeting? Callie, will you call roll?
Yes. John Hedges.
Here.
Gary Pepley. Heidi Larson.
Here.
Ashley Overton.
Here.
Dale Ryder.
Here.
Erica Weaver.
Here.
And Michelle Scanlon.
Here. First of all, thank you all for coming. We appreciate your attendance tonight. Under reception of visitors, item 2.1D, 1A, Matching FFA chapter, MHS Ag students and staff. You are up.
Is there a presentation?
It is. I think it's the second tab, maybe. Looks like maybe. Fancy Canva. Oh, no, next one over. There it is.
My name is Savannah Cole. I'm an officer for the Matching FFA. I'm Abigail Niemeyer, and I'm also an officer at the Matching FFA chapter. And we would like to give you a Matching FFA update. So first was homecoming. We were able to participate in the parade, and we had about 10 FFA members join us for that. We had the theme of harvest, and so the decorations and trailer were donated by alumni. The next thing we went to was LTS, which is Leadership Training School. This was located in Detroit, Illinois. We had about 8 or 9 members attend, and we went to workshops that worked on our leadership, and they were mostly focused around teamwork. We also went to horse judging. This was our first event. It was in Charleston, Illinois. We had lots of members attend. Here you do multiple things for the competition. There's a written test that you do as a team. You also have a halter class where you judge the body figure of a horse, their muscling, their back, how they stand. And you also have a riding class where you judge how well the rider connects with the horse and how well the horse connects with the rider by their cues. And I was able to participate with both of my horses in those. We also did harvest bags for the farmers. We created goodie bags with nuts and cookies in them and delivered them to local elevators like Coal Station and Dorn so that farmers can have a treat in the field. We did a fall festival with pre-K through kindergarten. They were able to come and do a lesson about pumpkins and the stages and growth of pumpkins. We also had a petting zoo where there was donkeys and goats. There was also chickens, ducks, and I was able to bring my horse. There was activities like pedal tractors, and they got to play with a milking cow.
Next is National Convention. This is held in Indianapolis, and we were able to go and visit workshops and guest speakers. And so this was right before we went to Lucas Oil Stadium to listen to a guest speaker about leadership. And then on the next day, we went to Ozark Fisheries. They raised koi fish and crawdads, and so we were able to see how they were raised. And they sell them to places like Amazon and Walmart. Next was the honey farm. So we got to learn about how, like, the process from bees to honey and other things you can make, like candles. And then we got to bottle our own sample. And then this was back at the convention center. And so we were able to connect with other businesses and colleges out there.
This was our ag banquet. We had a fundraiser and a silent auction so that we could raise money for our newly chartered alumni. There was Mattoon FFA, Charleston FFA, and we also had Coles County 4-H. We also got to auction off the table items that people donated. This was a build conference, and it's for juniors and seniors. It was located in Normal, Illinois. This helps them prepare for their next step after high school and helps them meet with businesses in college. They also got to work on their teamwork skills by climbing a rock wall together.
So next was School to Farm, and for this we got to bring in second graders from Riddle and Williams, and we were able to team up with Fit to Serve and the child development classes at the high school, and we taught them about the importance of soil. And then this was agronomy, and so this was at Lakeland. The competition was about plants and seeds, and then farm machinery.
Our next competition was Dairy Foods. This was located in Newton, Illinois. We went and we were able to do a team problem, then we did an individual test. We also tasted cheeses, dairy, non-dairy products, milks, and we did a CMT test, which is a California mastitis test, and we were able to place fifth.
So next is Green Hand Quiz Bowl, and this is for freshmen only. It's a lot like Scholastic Bowl, but with FFA-related questions. And then we have the Courtyard Project, and this was given to the basic construction classes, but they asked us to help them for Green and Gold Day, and then we did another work day. So we were able to get almost all of it done, and they hope to get it done by next semester.
Some of our upcoming events are Ground Zero. This is a freshman and sophomore conference where we are able to go and build our leadership skills. We also have FFA Week. We have lots of exciting things planned where we can interact with the community and other things. You can check social media to be updated on that. We have another School to Farm where we plan to teach the kids about agriculture and the livestock in agriculture. Some of our upcoming CDE events are Parley Pro, public speaking, and job interviews.
We thank you for your time and your continued support. Are there any questions?
So the courtyard, what exactly are you guys doing?
So what they're working on is a path, and it's going to end up being used to where people can just hang out and eat lunch and stuff.
You seem very busy. That's an awful lot to get done.
Have either or both of you been to your lobby day in Springfield before, in the Capitol? Okay, I hope you go. In my years in the legislature, I will tell you that every year amongst my favorite days was walking into the Capitol and seeing a sea of blue FFA jackets from all across the state. It's a highly effective day for FFA, so if you get the chance, I hope you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. Item 2.1B, presentation of Southeastern Illinois Community Foundation grants. Chris Molesky.
Thanks, everybody. So I get to follow the kids, huh? Man, great job, great job. And I want to talk a little bit about the Southeastern Community, or the Southeastern Illinois Community Foundation, along with the Mattoon Education Foundation for Academic Excellence. So we're very fortunate in Mattoon to have both that work collectively with Mattoon. So tonight we have Alex Pleasant, who is the President and CEO of Southeastern with us today, and along with Laura Bolin, one of our community partners with Sarah Bush, and Emily Payton with YMCA, and I believe that's it for tonight. So thankful for them to be here. So the photo that you see up here right now is the Mattoon Middle School Chili Supper, and this comes into play with one of the grants that we'll be able to show you here in just a minute. I'm gonna have to do it because I can't read that from there. So well, I'll wing it. I think I've read it quite a bit. Mattoon Education Foundation is a charitable fund committed to promoting community involvement and family engagement, two areas that I'm deeply passionate about. In education projects and programming for the Mattoon School District. Along with that, the Mattoon Foundation, let's see if I can get that. Mattoon Foundation for Academic Excellence has 4 different areas that the grants must qualify for. So one, connect classrooms and students to the community, along with making sure that there is a level of consistent engagement with community. Along with that, making sure it addresses a curriculum outcome. And then last but not least, must be student driven. So all the grant applications that go for the Mattoon Education Foundation must have these 4 items in order to potentially be awarded. Okay, so tonight, this kind of backs up with the STEM grant. The Mattoon Middle School Family STEM grant, science, technology, engineering, and math. Family STEM grant focus, family engagement, the communication with family members, along with reading. And I will have to move for this so I can read it. My idea, this is from Ashley Wishart, who is a 6th grade special ed teacher who wrote the grant. Her idea was to increase family engagement through building the STEM kids together. The kids were presented as popular and engaging at parent-teacher conferences, so that downtime when parents are sitting waiting for their conferences, they were able to work on the STEM kids, along with at the chili supper. So as families were gathered around to have that chili right before Thanksgiving, they were able to have those great discussions and build something together. So big congratulations to Ashley. Got a couple of our kiddos showcasing one being a race car and a helicopter. And Ashley was, again, the $1,000 recipient at Mattoon Middle School. Cute kids. Okay, Jacob Fryman was also a recipient at Mattoon Middle School. Received a $1,000 grant for decorative lanterns and welcome signs for families. And from Jacob, with some of those star students that you see there. The goal of this project is to provide an interactive activity students can do at home or with their loved ones and guardians, and made by the students at Mattoon Middle School. So all the projects that were showcased with this grant were made by the kids. So again, congratulations to Jacob. I should say Mr. Fryman, he's now a teacher. It's hard when they're former students, isn't it? The next grant recipient, Rachel McCoy. Ms. McCoy is going to be doing the Clifton Strengths-Based Parenting book with her families. A nice picture of her classroom of students there at the bottom. Through this grant and book study, families will be able to see their strengths in action, especially in their interactions with their own students. In addition, families will possess a greater understanding of how to engage students in a way that moves those talents to strengths. So like parents and teachers, we all want our kids to find those passions, want them to find what they're really good at. And then in addition, taking those strengths and pursuing something in the future. So this project will start here in February 2023. This photo is of the Mattoon High School College and Career Night. It looks a little sparse, but this was right before we opened the doors, okay? So we had some people moving into the room. With that, we had showcase at night. All counselors were on hand. We had Eastern Illinois, we had Sarah Bush. There was Lakeland present. There was Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. There was Berkey's Farm Supply. We also had ROTC there, along with a new group out of Muhammad. It's something called the U.S. Navy Sea Cadets. So it was a first-time presentation that they had come to Mattoon High School. So with that, we estimated, and I'm sorry, Dan Compton is the gentleman to my right, presenting for LIFT. So we thought overall we had a couple of hundred people go through and collect their goodie bags and information about all the different offerings. So this grant was written by Dee Dalby, and Dee's quote there, Ms. Dalby, by bringing in the different businesses and off-campus opportunities, students and their families have a front row seat to see that there are countless avenues to take besides college. And that's what was really neat about that career night. You had all levels of students looking at opportunities, whether it was looking at a college, whether it was looking at a workforce, whether it was looking at military opportunities, and connecting and having a good time while they're at it. So congratulations to Dee Dalby and Mattoon High School. Here's where Emily and Laura come into play. At Riddle Elementary School, Lori Westra, who's there in the middle in the pink, pulled together a group, including Jordan Coleman. And I knew I would forget her name, so I wrote it down. Casey Carley, their counselor, along with Regional Office of Education Attendance Specialist. We have Blair Dosh and Teresa Metzger, and then of course Emily and Laura. And they wrote a grant that would connect families with sponsor families or mentor families. And Lori's quote there, we're starting a pilot program at Riddle Elementary where the school nurse and school counselor will take the lead in identifying families to join us on a journey of discovery and growth, which will lead to healthier families, healthier schools, and ultimately a healthier community. So that partnership grant, 10,000 grant recipient, and great work. We started off, I say we because I'm one of the mentor families and was there for the kickoff. We did the kickoff right before Thanksgiving, and we come back in January. Am I right on that? Thank you. Jody's not here to tell me when I need to show up. The next one, Green and Gold Day, probably a project that's been near and dear to all of our hearts. So Green and Gold Day, at the top, some pictures of our students at the past Green and Gold Day. The top, those are Mattoon High School football players at Mattoon Middle School. To the bottom left, we have a group with Mrs. East and her bio students at, I should say, the wave time students at Fit to Serve at the community garden. And one of our students, Ricky, helping a student, and Mr. Stewart, I can't recognize where that is. Is that on campus there? I thought maybe one of the workshops, but I wasn't for certain. So, but that's one of our students, Ricky from Paris, and being a part of our day that day. Some more photos. So we have a couple students up at right across from the Amtrak station at the Pavilion, Heritage Park. And then we have a couple of posters being made and displayed at Franklin Preschool about Green and Gold Day, and thank you to those that participated. We have an outstanding video. It's about 2 minutes. I'd like to show you. This was created by Piper Sanders, a Mattoon High School student. with some assist from our very own Callie Pullum over there. Sorry, you're all backed it up. Thanks, Dave, appreciate that. Okay, this Green and Gold Day project was written, I believe, by a group of folks, but Vinny takes Mr. Walk takes a pretty significant lead on this. From Mr. Walk, the activities of Homecoming Week gave students the opportunity to interact and learn about the many service organizations in the Mattoon area. And MHS wants students to become more aware of local career options and opportunities to start building professional connections with businesses and alumni, which would develop into internships and valuable mentor connections. And as you could see from that video, kids are meeting the community. They're going out there, they're enjoying themselves, they're interacting with our younger students as well. So this grant was another $10,000 recipient. So we had two $10,000 recipients this past year, along with 4 $1,000 recipients. This was pretty significant. Since the 2017-2018 school year, Mattoon Foundation for Academic Excellence has awarded over $119,000 to grant recipients in the Mattoon schools. Tremendous thank you to the Mattoon Foundation for Academic Excellence, to all grant recipients, school staff that envision the learning projects that will connect students with the community, which often go beyond typical school walls. We have Alex here, Laura and Emily. I'm sorry if I blew past and didn't get you a chance to talk. Is there anything you want to say about the project that you're working in or on?
We're super excited because there's 10 families that are going to be helped. And really our vision is that these 10 families will someday become future mentors for more families, and that it will just continue to grow. And you talked about the introductory night. We did a pre-post type survey, so we'll have some measurement as well. We sort of did a needs analysis. We didn't call that, we called it an interest survey, but they got to pick the topics that meant the most to them and that they'll get to learn about. And we were super excited to watch them already on that very first night start to build those relationships with their mentors and really start being transparent and open up. And I just think it's going to be great. The official classes start in January. So anything you want to add?
No, I think Lori's word of discovery could be easily overlooked, but that's truly what it is. Instead of sitting and listening to what we may say we need to do as families to be healthy, it's more about them discovering how their family can make it mold for them, similar to each of us and our lifestyles and health, how we find that all to work. So that discovery as a teacher, the aha moment is what we're going for, and we had it already on night 1.
Thank you for that. Special mentions, Callie for all the work that she puts out there or has been putting out there about Green and Gold Day. Now we have a wonderful Katie. Where's Katie? There's Katie. Who'll be helping us here in the future. Also, Rob Strout here in the front. Rob has done a great job of covering Green and Gold and all the different grant activities that are focused here to get the word out. And part of that is we're not trying to toot our own horn. We're just trying to share with those that don't really know what's going on in our schools and those valuable partnerships that we're trying to create. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see what our next round is. And Ashley had messaged me through an email and she said, I've already got something planned for the next round. So like many of those that have been awarded past grants, I know we'll have others that'll throw their hat in the ring to build upon what we've done in the past and look towards the future. So big thank you. Thank you to the Board of Ed and of course administration for always supporting what we're doing for community.
Could they please stand so we can see their faces?
Sure.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you. Under non-agenda visitors, I have 2 slips that have been filled out, and the first one is Cassie Hall. If you'd like to stand.
Hi guys, I haven't been to a meeting for a while, but I have been watching some online. So I just wanted to read a little bit. I'm not good at public speaking, so you'll have to excuse me. But so when the idea of a parent review committee was initially brought up for the new education materials, I was very interested in participating, but I hadn't told anyone about that yet. Sometime over the summer, I was approached by Michelle Skinlow, and she asked if I would be interested in participating, and of course I said yes. It had been a while since I had heard anything else, so then on July 30th, I attempted to ask her about the group via Facebook Messenger since I still hadn't heard anything. The following day, she responded also via Facebook and included a comment about her awareness of my choosing to homeschool this year. I said, yes, I am, and I asked if it was a requirement to have my children currently in the school district to be able to participate in the committee. She said that she would check, but would assume so since it's a school committee. It didn't dawn on me until much later that the school board members themselves, including, not all of the school board members themselves, including Michelle, not everybody has children in the school district. Not all teachers have children in the district either. Since then, I understand there was a group organized by someone else, but I didn't know that until yesterday. I didn't get notified that a group was being formed, and while I don't think that was intentional, it means that it slipped through the cracks. I'm afraid this whole situation has slipped through the cracks, and likely intentionally, since you all know it has been a high interest topic from the beginning. Let it be clear that my choice to remove my children from the district was directly a result of the school board voting to adopt this new curriculum. I meant it when I said it was a hard line for me and that I wouldn't budge. And just because my children aren't currently students doesn't mean that I don't care. Don't be mistaken, just because you're making amendments to the curriculum doesn't make it any better. The fact of the matter is that you still went against our wishes in the first place by voting it in to begin with. And I do have some questions, and I just didn't know if now is the appropriate time to do that or if we'll be able to interact and ask questions during the presentation.
I would say, Cassie, it's up to you. If you want to share those questions right now, the board probably isn't at the point where they can respond to them. But
Right.
if you'd like
That's
to share
why
that
I figured it would
information-
probably be more appropriate during the presentation or sometime after. I just wanted to make sure that we would be able to ask those questions.
Can we clarify that we didn't vote to do anything with the new sex ed curriculum? We haven't
But-
adopted that.
It got voted in,
We
quote
did not.
unquote, with amendments.
We did not.
There was a yes vote.
We voted to have a review, but we did not vote to adopt. That sex ed curriculum is still what it was before. We haven't made any changes.
And Cassie,
That's not my understanding.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I just was saying that's not my understanding, and I think a lot of parents are under the understanding that it did get voted in, quote unquote, with amendments. We were yet to hear what those amendments were supposed to be, but
Cassie, if you would stick around, because I think it'll provide some clarity a little bit later on, and Christie shares kind of a presentation with that, and then we can have some dialogue if you like. Okay?
And I was not aware that the committee had already been formed. That was not my position to do
I
that.
I know, and like I said, I don't necessarily think that that was intentional. Unfortunate, yeah, but not necessarily intentional.
Okay, Dr. Dan Hafley?
Hafley.
Hafley, I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you. I appreciate you saying what was on your heart. I know it's scary to do that. I'm Dan Hafley. I've been here 10 years. A lot of you know, I'm honored to call a lot of you friends. And I care about the school. I don't come as an antagonist. I want you to know that. But you're all smart people, and so you know I'm here. The sex ed curriculum, I know that you're discussing and talking about whatever state it's at, wherever you're at. I want you to think about a couple of things. I've had a lot of community people that are concerned that have come to me. That's why I'm here tonight. A lot of folks that are voicing their concerns. Mattoon has been an amazing community. When I came here, I fell in love with it. It didn't take long. My kids have all married locally. My son-in-law sits here with me. He came to this school, graduated from here, served in the military for 3 years. Honored to be part of the community now. I just want you to know that. I'm excited about the LIFT project. As you know, we've recently opened up our Christian school on the northeast side of town, the old Douglas building. And you're all welcome to come by and visit. One of the reasons we've done that is because I think some of the really good teachers in our public school system, their hands are tied and they can't talk about God like we can. And it's a sad thing, but I know there's a lot of good teachers in your system. I understand that. And all of you have been so helpful to us, so supportive. We have, our school is stocked with desks and things from your school system. So I want you to know I'm not antagonizing. I'm not coming with that spirit. But I do come with a concern. Our culture is completely over-sexualized. You know that's true. Everyone's afraid to say, this is insane. Everybody is afraid to say, if they feel like this is probably not right, well, if I say something, somebody's gonna shoot me down, somebody's gonna say I'm ignorant, somebody's gonna say I'm misinformed. We just saw that. You guys, here's a lady, who's afraid, she's speaking up, and you're immediately telling her, well, you're misinformed. Well, I understand what you're saying, you're defending yourselves. But from her perspective, that's a little difficult to swallow. You know what I'm saying? We're afraid of the activism that is moving into our community. You know about the Arts Council. Do you know about it? Do you know about the drag queen show that was in Mattoon? Do you know about it? You don't know about it? Okay. So that is being pushed into our community. We're concerned about that. I would like some sanity. I'd like us to think about it. You remember the story of I'm sorry. Yeah, sure. Okay. I'll quit.
I don't think I took 3 minutes. He can take the rest of my time.
If you have the comment you want to wrap up with, that would be fine. We don't want to cut you off.
If you don't mind, just one comment is about the emperor's new clothes. You remember that story? I won't tell you the story, but most educators know that story. Basically, it was a couple children that said the emperor's not wearing any clothes. And all of the adults in the community were afraid to speak up and say the truth. And I would like to say to you, please, somebody have some guts to stand up for our children and stop the insanity. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3 for consent agenda. 3.1, approval of minutes. 3.1A, regular board meeting, November 15th, 2022. 3.2, financial payment of bills. 3.2A, presentation of the bills for approval. 3.2B, monthly to financial reports by fund. 3.2C, budget to actual report. 3.3, enrollment report. 3.4, approval of Mattoon High School chess team to attend IHSA State Chess Tournament, February 9th through the 11th, 2023 in Peoria, Illinois. 3.5, approval of LIFT leadership course. 3.6, approval of MHS capstone class course, healthcare occupations, and Class E. 3.7, freedom of information report. May I have a motion and a second? Motion by Erica, second by Ashley. Are there any questions of the board? Seeing none, will you call roll?
Larson? Overton?
Yes.
Ryder?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Skinlon?
Yes, thank you. Item 4, reports and recommendation of the business manager. Mr. Sherman.
3 quick things here. First one is board action to approve the fiscal year 22 audit. Our fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30th, so this is for the year that ended June 30th of 2022. And we work with Kemper CPA Group, and Nick Helton is here from Kemper CPA. We've had a good relationship with Kemper for a number of years, and especially with Nick for the last probably 3 or 4. And he will go over this as an independent audit that is done. They ask us to come in for a couple of weeks and do some preliminary work. Then they do their work with everything, and then they come in and ask some fine-tuning questions, and then it comes up with an audit. The board members have been presented with a bound audit. I don't know how many pages it is, but it's pretty thick. And this is a summary that Kemper does for us each and every year. You can see before you, and the board has this too at their seat. So I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Thank you. Again, my name is Nick Elton with Kemper CPA Group. And I first wanted to start out by giving a shout out and saying thanks to everyone at the district. The audit's very intrusive and disruptive of everyone's days. So I really appreciate everyone's help. And I wanted to specifically call attention to the accounting department, people behind the scenes, Katrina Eagle, Sheila Cobb, Rebecca Kuhn, Don McGinnis, and my co-presenter Tom here. Thank you everybody so much for your help. It really takes a village to get everything out the door. So thank you again. And I will say with everything we looked at, the most important thing was a clean audit opinion. There were no significant issues we ran into. And that has been the case for several years, but this year I wanted to kind of put that in perspective with all of the ESSER and COVID funding that came through. I believe it was $6.6 million that were expended on these ESSER programs this year, and we come through just about all of them and didn't have any issues with anything that was expended there. So again, I just wanted to commend the district for doing a great job on that. We really poured into it a lot this year, busy year. So with that being said, I'll come in here to the financial profile summary and the financial profile score here. This FY22 column, this is as of your June 30 fiscal year end, and it is down a point from last year, but that is, there's several factors that go into the financial profile score, and this is actually in those audit reports. Listed in your supplementary information. You don't have to look at that right now. I was just going to touch on some highlights on it. So what goes into that is your fund balance to revenue ratio, and ISB scores you 1 to 4 on this. So fund balance to revenue was a perfect 4, expenditures to revenue was a perfect 4, and your short-term debt was a perfect 4. The other 2 factors in here are your days cash on hand, which is how long can the district operate with the cash on hand if no more money came in. And it's at 154 days. I believe the perfect score for ISB is 180, Tom. Do you know exactly? Yeah, 180. So you're right there, real close to it. And then for long-term debt, that one was also a 3 out of 4, and that is because the district recently issued some debt this past year. And that will, as those payments are made, as your EAD goes up, that plays a factor into it as well. The long-term debt margin that's factored in here will also improve. So 3.8 still achieves a recognition from ISB, which is the highest status you can receive there. So just because, that's down a point from last year, I think, 3.8 out of 4, that's pretty strong score. The next line here is your long-term debt margin, like I was just saying. It's down 13 million from last year, but that is from the debt issuance to, I believe those bonds were to issue at a better rate to pay back older bonds that were at a higher rate. So this would be more beneficial this current year. Is that right, Tom?
And we refinanced some alternate revenue bonds, and then we also took out debt certificates as well. So there's a couple different things that we've done in the last 2 fiscal years that have an impact on what Nick is talking about with our debt. So we have the bond piece, then we have the debt certificate piece as well, but they both affect our long-term debt.
And yeah, I know that's just a large number there, but like I said, that's a 3 out of 4 for ISB score, and that long-term debt margin, that is calculated based off your EAP, which we'll get to that in a little bit. The next item on this list is the estimated operating expense per pupil, and that is down $941 from last year, which is a good thing. That is what it costs the district per student. For operating expenses, there's a little bit of a calculation that goes involved in there. The intricacies of it is actually in the audit report as well. That's calculated from ISB based off of your numbers and put to that AFR. And to give some perspective on this number, it's 11,282. The state average is 15,739. So you're beating the state by a significant amount. And same story for the per capita tuition charge. That one is down as well this year by $1,100, and it's at $8,1114. The state average there is $12,860. So again, beating the state average significantly there.
I might point out that number, the $8,114 that Nick just talked about, that's if we had a person that lived in an outlying district. They live in Charleston, they live in Sullivan, and they want to send their child to Mattoon schools. That's what we would charge them. So it's an audit number. It's not a number that I make up or the district makes up. We go back to our audit report, and we have this from time to time. Usually once a month, somebody will call our office and say, hey, I live in whatever school district and I want my son or daughter to go to Mattoon. How much would it cost? That's what I tell them.
So onto your cash reserves. This year is up over $8 million. And this is one of the factors that plays into that financial profile score that you're too on. So, and that day's cash on hand. So if that was a little bit higher, that would be a perfect 4.0. That's also kind of give and take because that is money just sitting there that obviously the district wants to spend on programs and things like that. Your accounts receivable from ISB at year end, that is up a fair amount. And that's not necessarily a good or bad thing. That receivable is from grant revenues that are due to the district for money that was expended during the fiscal year. So likely at this time, most of that's probably been received. So if that number is lower, that means you've collected more of the money that's due to you. And that's really largely timing. That will fluctuate significantly each year. It's not a big negative or positive impact. It's just the timing of the grants. And the last thing on the list is the EAV from 2020 to 2021. That went up about $8 million, and that affects a few different metrics. Like I was saying, the long-term debt is calculated what the district can borrow off of that number, and I believe the property taxes are also based off of this number for what the district's expected to collect. So as you see that go up, you should see your tax rates go up as well. I know that does a lot of information, and as an auditor, I speak a bit of a different language, so please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to elaborate on anything. And also, if you get to read and questions come up, my contact information is on this sheet here. Please shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I might point out, and if you do have questions, please either let me know or contact Nick or Mr. Gear here, and we will turn out. If we can't come up with an answer, we will go to Nick. Nick's been great. His office is always good, answering emails, questions, or whatever as they come up that we need to answer. He brings up a good point with the ESSER's dollars and the state dollars. The federal dollar grants have really increased over the last couple of years, and unless something happens in the next couple of years, those will disappear. So as all of this comes up, it's also going to disappear. So there's a kind of an ebb and flow with all of these, especially with the grant dollars, so that those numbers will change as you see over time. But we also want to give you an historic thing, and I'm glad Nick puts this on here. We always go back 3 or 4 years, we're going all the way back to FY18. You can see those other columns there to kind of gauge where we've been historically. The financial stability of the district. You can see we went from a 3.35 to 3.45 to 3.9. We're gradually improving our financial profile score, which again is a very good sounding board for how well the district is doing financially. You can see the operating expense per pupil. It's up slightly from where it was, or down slightly from FY21. It's up just a little bit of what it was 4 years ago. I don't know too many places where you can compare things to what happened 4 years ago and have it be this small of an increase. The estimated per capita tuition charge, it's actually down from what it was back in 2018. So again, that's another good financial indicator from all this. So there's a lot of good things, I feel anyway, there's a lot of good information here. There's a lot of good financial piece with the district. Kudos to the principals, assistant principals sitting out here too. Everybody in this district is really aware of the money and the fiscal responsibility we have. Everybody talks about educating students and all that kind of thing. And our department is all about being able to come up with the financial resources so you can do what it is you do and do it better than we can do it. So that's why we're able, we're very proud to present this and have Nick to come in and give us a clean audit. It just sort of supports and builds us a foundation for where we are at and where we can go from this point. So thanks to Nick. If you have any questions, feel free to ask him now or send me an email, send Nick an email. We'll get back to you. But if there are no questions, then we need to have a motion to approve the audit. But does somebody have any questions? Go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about the EAV? I was losing you a little bit in what that 8 million is.
Yes, so that is what when you levy taxes, that is the value that the county assessor has placed on the county. And the overlap is the overlapping counties that are served. So as that goes up, that is not within the district's control or anything, but that is what a lot of the calculations are based off of.
The financial profile score, what goes into computing that?
So there is a page in the supplementary information in there that breaks that down a little bit. Looks like this. So this talks about the page number.
Is this in the supplements?
Yeah, it'll be in the supplementary information.
What page? 49?
Page
49.
49. So that's
49.
This calculation is based off of your balance sheet, your income statement, so your assets and your revenues and expenditures is how that's calculated. I believe the per capita tuition charge and the OEPP, that's also based on the average daily attendance as well, and that factors in that score as well.
Okay. The long-term debt margin.
Mhm.
Can you put that in non-CPA lawyer speak or?
Yes, so the districts can take out debt up to a legal limit, and that legal limit is a percentage of this EAV here.
Mhm.
So as that fluctuates, if there was no debt at all, you would see something closer to 40-some million. So I think it's 11, 12%, something like that. That's set by state statute.
Mhm.
So your EAV times that is the legal debt limit. So any debt issued is your legal debt margin. So it's your legal debt limit minus the debt that is outstanding. So
it's the space you have left?
correct. If you wanted to.
Is that right? Is that a way to say it? It's the gap you have left between the legal limit and what you have outstanding?
Yeah, what this is saying, if you wanted to take out a $28 million loan, the district has the capacity to do that legally.
Got it. Okay.
But yes, that's correct, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then who is here, since we're just seeing, do we typically get this, they have to present to them?
I believe we delivered this just the other day, we try to get that to you sooner. We also have a PDF which I actually sent earlier as well, and make sure to send that out.
Yeah. the rest of you, that would be helpful to see it before we vote on it. Is there a possibility you could show me like what is our total debt? Is there a page in here that says total debt?
Yes, there is. I need a report here.
You want to look at it?
I put this thing together, I know it pretty well, it's on the page. So this is the total short-term and long-term debt right here, on page 51. Short-term is up here, here is when it was issued, the amount that's outstanding.
And those are the four things when Nick's talking to. We have four things that are out that are debt. We have general obligation school bonds series 2013. Then we have capital appreciation bonds. We use those bonds to do the middle school and high school roofs. We took that out back in 2015. We did the debt certificates in 2021 and the general obligation bonds to refinance in 2021 as well. So those are the four things. Debt certificates, we don't levy taxes for. And at the back, at last month's meeting, we had 3 resolutions to abate the other 3 bonds that we did. So we did not pass those bond payments on to the taxpayers. The district took those on and ate that cost. So of those 4 things, 3 of the 4 were not passed on to the taxpayers at all because of abating the bonds last month.
And Nick, to just offer some clarity to Heidi's question around the time frame of this. Typically, this is conducted in October, but this year, due to all the additional federal grants, there was an extension that was taken in order for us to complete the audit by December 15th, which is set in school code as well. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yeah.
Nick, do you guys do other area districts without naming them?
Yes, I personally work on 2 others, and our firm as a whole works on several, yes.
How would you say that we're doing as a district compared to the other districts, to your knowledge?
That's an even more dangerous question. I would say the Mattoon School District is performing, your financial profile score here, I think that's your best indicator. So 3.8 out of 4 is strong, and I would say a lot of districts I see are above 3.5, so I'd say it's pretty average compared to the ones I audit personally.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I need a motion and a second to approve the fiscal year 2022 audit report.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by John, second by Bill Ryder. Any further questions? Callie, will you call roll?
Larson,
I'm gonna abstain.
Overton,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Skinner.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
4.2, board action to apply for and submit ISB school maintenance project grant. I'm going to turn this over to the soon-to-be taking my place, Ryan Gear. He didn't speak better in this presentation. He's the one that wrote this grant, so Ryan, it's all yours.
I've never done this before. Okay, so Illinois State Board of Education is offering a fiscal year grant for this fiscal year for school maintenance project grant. It's a dollar-for-dollar match of $50,000. It's exclusively for the maintenance and upkeep of buildings or structures that we have. And we are going to apply for this grant with your approval, to offset some of the costs of replacing the cafeteria and gym flooring at Riddle Elementary and William Elementary School. Buildings are over 20 years old now, and we're gonna have to start some upkeep on these. So we're gonna want to start on the cafeteria and gym flooring, those 2 buildings. So the proposed cost for this project for the 2 buildings, for the floor in both, is around $300,000. And all I'm asking for, or we are asking for today, is just the board to approve the pursuit of this grant opportunity so we can offset some of the costs of this project. The project's already been put in this year's budget, so this would just help alleviate some of the costs of that project.
May I have a motion and a second, and any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Ashley, second by Erica. Are there any questions?
Has to be allocated in the next 2 years, and that's really it. So it would basically take a project that we're already gonna do and ask for money for the state to help pay for some of it. So yeah, that's all it is.
And the full cost of the work that you have up here has already been allocated for in the budget, so this would actually create a little room in the budget.
Correct.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions? Will you call roll, please?
Overton?
Yes.
Ryder?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Skinlow?
Yes. Thank you. 4.3.
All right, 4.3, this is a good one. Board action to accept a donation. Mr. Duckett would like to be here today, but he's at the girls' basketball game across town. So Mr. Duckett was recently approached by a family in our community that would like to donate money to the MHS athletic department. They would like to remain anonymous, but donate $20,000. They went to Mr. Duckett, asked him, you know, what's something that you're working on in the athletic department that you could use some extra funds? If you know Mr. Duckett, he's got lots of ideas and lots of projects he would like to do. So he loved this. So he kind of talked to him about some things that he wanted to do and commemorate the history of our athletic program in the athletic wing of the high school. They thought that was a great idea, being from the community and being lifelong supporters of Mattoon Athletics. And any money then that wasn't spent on this, they wanted to be able to put to athletic programming at the high school at his discretion. And the recommendation is for the board to accept this $20,000 donation for Mattoon High School.
That's a really hard one.
I got good ones.
I have a motion and a second. Motion by Erica, second by Ashley. Any questions? Kind of a no-brainer.
No, I'm bringing money in.
Will you call roll, please, Natalie?
Larson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Ryder?
Yes.
Skinlow?
Yes. Thank you. Item 5, reports and recommendation of the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Dr. Scosi.
Thank you. The board has before them. The December personnel report. As we go through, we have certified resignation, Lacey Marcello resigning Williams Elementary School fifth grade teacher effective December 22nd here at the end of the semester. Then my certified appointments, Tabitha Drummond, substitute teacher, pending approval of licensure from ISBE as that's being processed as we speak. Classified appointments, Kaylee Casey, Williams Elementary School title paraprofessional effective December 19th, 2022. And then Evelyn Weber, substitute bus aide, effective immediately. Jennifer Westendorf, substitute supervisor, effective immediately. And then Mickey Wamsley, volunteer. Continuing on, 5.1D, extracurricular resignations, Brendan Jones, resigning Mattoon High School boys junior varsity golf coach, effective immediately. And Brett Foreman, resigning as Mattoon High School junior varsity baseball coach, effective immediately. And one small addendum. Recommending Arlie Denning, Williams Elementary School fifth grade teacher, effective immediately, and then classified appointments to volunteers. Chloe Pruitt or Zaka. Any questions? See none, I would ask the board to approve the personnel report as presented.
We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel report.
Motion.
Motion by Ashley, second by Erica. Any questions? Will you call roll?
Hedges?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Ryder?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
And Skinlow?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, reports and recommendation of Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, Dr. Hill.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Tonight, I'm here to talk to the board about recommendations for the health and sex education curriculum. Appreciate all of the interest from the community members who've come and participated in this process, but also just coming to the meetings to show their interest in what's going on in our classrooms with our kids. Start off by just outlining the purpose of tonight's presentation. So tonight is just presenting to the board what the recommendations are. There'll be no action tonight. So we will be able to share with you what's been discussed and what's being recommended. by both the advisory team and the curriculum coordinating committee. All of the information that's available tonight is going to be posted on our website. So you'll be able to click through all the links. Board members will be able to review everything. And we have a month that we can answer questions before we even have to talk about it again. So plenty of opportunities to go through everything. We can talk about questions tonight for sure. Cassie, if you've got questions, we'd be happy to answer whatever tonight. But then, of course, as you go through, there's a lot of information. So if you go through and there's other things that come up, anybody that's on one of these committees or any of us would be happy to have conversations. So again, no action tonight, other than discussion. That'll be action, I guess. I think it's important to recognize that the people who aren't in the room tonight who are part of this process. So this has been a process that started in August, and I'll go through kind of the timeline of that, but I just wanted you to see the members of our community that participated in this. Our board members, both Ashley and Heidi, participated as a board member and as a parent. Dr. Amy Leitheit is a pediatrician in the community. She's also a parent. She's been on the advisory team. Mr. Schaefer, our principal at Williams. We had Mrs. Hackey, our Williams Elementary School PE teacher, participated. Haley Franz, a parent of both a Williams student and a middle school student. Kendall Kaufman, a parent of a Williams student and now also a Williams employee, right? Yeah. Lori Storm, a kindergarten teacher. She's also a parent of a high school student and a Williams student. She's had boys in her school for quite a while and been a kindergarten teacher for us for a long time. Alice and Meng Bang both have students in both Williams and at the middle school. Chad Arnold, our principal at Riddle, is also a parent. Middle schoolers. Joanna Wang was a Riddle parent who participated on this team. Molly Hastings, a parent of a primary age student at Riddle, participated. Brett Corman, our PE teacher at Riddle. We also had Mr. Pugh, our middle school principal. Nikki Short, a parent representative of the middle school. Jamie Forsythe, she's a parent of a middle schooler. She's also a pediatric nurse practitioner in our community. Mrs. Negus, champion participant, and Michelle's health teacher and also a parent. Mr. Duckett participated in some of the meetings. Mrs. Schumacher, also high school assistant principal, participated. Sierra Hayes, district nurse, was unable to attend meetings but gave input virtually. She's a very busy person. I was really the facilitator of the committee, and Mr. Contran participated as well. So in addition to that team, which really did I don't want to say the bulk of the work, but kind of, like that was the team that really did a lot of the learning and made a lot of the recommendations. They sent that to another group of people who aren't all in this room, but I think it'd be good for you. You might see anyone here that you could write down and talk to if you have questions. And also just knowing that there was a diverse and large group. So we have two student representatives that are part of the curriculum coordinating committee, Renee and Aiden. Ms. Weaver was the Board of Education representative on that team. Jay Westra is a Riddle parent representative. Jennifer Miller has two students at the high school. Jody Stamps, our middle school, I put middle school, really could have been middle school, high school.
Technically, it's high school.
Okay. Parent representative. Jessica Clausen was our MEA representative. I was on that team. Chris Brown from Lyft. Mrs. Kraft, our Lyft Elementary School assistant principal. Mrs. Kleiss, middle school assistant principal. And we also had Amanda Titus from Franklin, Mr. Wheeler from Riddle, Ms. Renshaw from Riddle, Ms. Weber from Riddle, Mrs. Stewart from Williams, Mrs. Nolte, kindergarten teacher at Williams, Kim Christensen from the middle school, Megan Cole from the middle school, Paige Carlin from the high school, Vinnie Walk from the high school, and Mr. Condren, our superintendent. So those people were also present and part of these discussions. Again, great resources if you have questions. So here's what the process looked like. This is the work that's been done. And everything that's turquoise is a hyperlink to the minutes of the meetings. So this will be posted for board to review, and it'll be posted for public to review, so you can go in and actually read what happened during the meetings. But the very first meeting, we established some norms, and we talked about what the process was going to look like. I appreciated your comments about just being able to have honest and open discourse, and that was one of the norms that was established from the beginning. We had a lot of people participating with diverse opinions, and we wanted everyone to feel safe to share what they thought, either in person at the meetings, or we had forums that they could give their input if they didn't feel comfortable talking at the group. So there were quite a few norms established, and I really credit that first meeting with a lot of the success of the team that works together and, talk about some challenging topics. September, the team reviewed what is happening and has been happening in our school district for, what did we say, 30 maybe years? What this curriculum has always looked like. So we started with that, and we just asked, is there anything you feel like has been missing? Or is there anything you feel like is inappropriate or you're not comfortable with? And we started from that place of what are we currently doing and what do we like, dislike about that. When I talk about existing practices, our teachers actually put the curricular resources and materials in that presentation. So again, that's hyperlinked. I would encourage you and invite you to look at that so you can see everything exactly like what the committee saw. So after we looked at that, the next meeting we said, okay, let's look at what we're currently doing and let's see how does that align with what's proposed in this gigantic document of a lot of standards. And so the team ultimately said, like, well, if we didn't see anything really wrong with what we were doing, can we just find a way to articulate that to what is being proposed? So that was kind of the local process that took place at the October 24th meeting. There's two links there, minutes and also kind of what happened in the articulation. So there's a presentation of all of those standards and all of the information that they had available to them. So in October 28th, the team members, we had 24 team members, they said, they gave their input, like, do you want to move forward with existing practices, or would you like to have another meeting and discuss anything else? And so 21 of the team members said, I think we're good, let's just keep what we're doing and take those practices forward. And we had 3 members that said, I just would like to know a little bit more about what's happening at the high school. We didn't talk about it quite as much, and so I'd like to do that and also consider some additional input. So we decided to go ahead and meet again. So November 14th, those minutes are there, and that meeting consisted of Mrs. Meadews kind of talking a little bit more about the high school stuff. We revisited what those materials look like. We answered some questions about what if this or what if that, how might the classroom handle this, or how does the classroom handle this? And then we had input from a student that was submitted to the team for their consideration, and the team members discussed that and had a really meaningful conversation around all different viewpoints. So that happened in November. Then Friday of that week, I think it was Friday, the team members submitted a vote for their next steps. So from here, what would you like to do? Do you want to meet again and talk about adding other things, changing things? Or do you want to take the recommendations you've generated forward to the curriculum coordinating committee for them to review and make recommendations for the board? So at that meeting, there was consensus reached to go ahead and take those recommendations forward to the next group, that curriculum coordinating committee. So the second slide, second people. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to talk to you about what their recommendations were. And this is detailed, and I apologize because it's going to be a little lengthy, but I feel like we have the opportunity to talk about it, so we might as well talk about it tonight, and then that way you guys can ask questions if you want, and everyone, feels like they see everything that's on here. So what the team reached consensus on was what content should be taught, so standards, and also some implementation considerations. So board, the team is carrying forward to you some considerations for the way these standards are taught in our classrooms. So this presentation tonight is just going to go through by grade band, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, what's the content, and what are those recommendations? Yeah, so there you go. Would you mind, Dave? This table is hyperlinked. I only made 20, but I'm going to go through this link right here. You guys can look at it if you want to after the meeting. But I'm going to go through what's on this table, like bullet point by bullet point. So you'll be able to see what's all included, what's being proposed by the team members on those first 2 slides. So the advisory team recommends continuing our existing curriculum, specifically the following instructional standards for elementary students. So the recommendation is continue what we're doing, and what does that look like? In kindergarten through 2nd grade, the content is currently taught in morning, meeting, and throughout the day. So We don't have a separate health or sex ed curriculum in elementary school. We don't have that. And you're gonna see what that is, it's proposed to continue that same thing. So instead, in kindergarten, the content that they're suggesting we intentionally include is describing characteristics of a friend and demonstrating ways to treat all people with dignity and respect. That happens right now in our second step and leader in need curriculum. So this, and it's also just modeled, right? Like, kindergarten teacher, how many times do you say like, we know our friends, right? So those are the standards that the team is recommending for K through 2. In 3 through 5, content that is being recommended, again, is continuing the existing curriculum. And that is taught through, again, morning meeting, through digital citizenship or computer type classes, or if we're getting our Chromebooks out, we talk about those kinds of things. And there is one difference in 3 through 5 that's not in K through 2, and it is, it's our puberty talk. So kids' bodies are changing, and again, that's the same thing we've done. So the standards that are being proposed, the content, is that students should be able to identify trusted adults, including parents and caregivers, that students can talk to about relationships. The orange content explain the physical, social, and emotional changes that occur during puberty and adolescence and how the onset and progression of puberty can vary. This is the part of the current and proposed curriculum that parents have the opportunity to opt out of. Right now it's a one-time conversation, and the team has some recommendations about that I'll get to in just a moment. And then identify strategies a person could use to call attention to or leave an uncomfortable or dangerous situation. Finally, make a plan for maintaining personal hygiene during puberty. This is talked about in PE, kind of just in general, right? Like, please wear your deodorant and wash your socks. But it's also part of the, your body's changing, and that has some chemical reactions, and what's your plan for having personal hygiene? Finally, demonstrate ways to promote dignity and respect for all people. So that's the team's proposed content recommendations for K-2. In 6 through 8, the team recommends continuing the existing curriculum, specifically the following standards. After I get through the standards, I'm going to talk about some implementation considerations that they'd like for the board to consider. So in 6th through 8th grade, the following is taught in advisory. The teal stuff is taught in advisory, and it's more about like social skills through digital citizenship, and those are kind of some social media do's and don'ts, stuff that maybe 30 years ago we actually didn't have in the curriculum, right? So, and then the orange stuff is the health class stuff. The orange is what parents have the opportunity to opt out of, always. So what that looks like, demonstrate communication skills that support healthy relationships, define medical accuracy, and analyze medically accurate sources of information about puberty, adolescent development, and sexual health. Identify factors that are important in deciding whether and when to engage in sexual behaviors. This is our game plan curriculum. It's an abstinence-based curriculum. And identify community resources and or other sources of support, such as trusted adults, including parents and caregivers that students can go to if they or someone they know is being sexually harassed, abused, assaulted, exploited, or trafficked. Again, the orange is part of what parents have the opportunity to opt out of. This is turquoise and blue because it's advisory, but also digital citizenship. So during advisory, we're taking the opportunity to talk to students about how technology, social media specifically, can impact relationships, also some self-concept stuff. So that's being done through those areas. Develop a plan to eliminate or reduce risk of unintended pregnancy and STDs. The team has a recommendation about that one specifically. Describe strategies a person could use when it's safe to do so to intervene when someone is being sexually harassed or someone they know is perpetuating unhealthy or coercive behaviors. Demonstrate strategies to communicate personal boundaries and how to show respect for the boundaries of others. And compare and contrast behaviors, including abstinence, which is what we teach in our district currently, to determine the potential risk of pregnancy and or STD transmission. Demonstrate strategies to use social media safely, legally, and respectfully. In 9 through 12, we recommended continuing the existing curriculum. Mrs. Meadows is here, she could probably answer really about any questions you might have. So right now, what this looks like in our high school board members is that we have 1/4 of health, and that backs up to driver's ed. So the orange stuff is what's taught in health class. The blue stuff is digital citizenship, and again, that turquoise is wave time and also just kind of like social emotional instruction throughout the day. So compare and contrast characteristics of healthy and unhealthy romantic and or sexual relationships. Explain the human reproductive and sexual response systems, including differentiating between internal and external body parts and their functions, and that there are naturally occurring variations in human bodies. That's in our body systems unit. It is linked into the notes, so you're able to actually see the slides that Mrs. Neves uses. Describe cognitive, social, and emotional changes of adolescence and early adulthood. Compare and contrast advantages and disadvantages of contraceptive and disease prevention methods. Advocate for school and community policies that promote safety, respect, and equity for all people. Again, that's part of our overall SEL curriculum. Evaluate strategies to end an unhealthy relationship, including when situations may require adult and or professional support. And describe common symptoms or lack thereof and treatments for STDs, including HIV. And you just finished that.
Yes, we just did that the other day.
Analyze factors that can affect the ability to give and receive sexual consent. List the major milestones of each trimester of fetal development utilizing medically accurate information. Evaluate strategies to use social media safely, legally, and respectfully. And demonstrate strategies to use social media safely, legally, and respectfully. So we're evaluating and we're demonstrating at the high school level. So in addition to those content standards, which represent what we currently teach, the advisory team and in the CCC made the following implementation considerations for the board for you guys to consider. First of all, they're recommending that puberty instruction occur beginning in 3rd grade and to be taught by a trained professional. Currently, what that looks like is we have kids come together with parent consent to go through the body change talk, and that's taught by school personnel. The team feels that should be taught by a medically trained professional. We still want to give consent. In addition, both the advisory team and the CCC recommended that information and training should be made available to parents. So the parents on the team said that they would like additional training and potentially the opportunity to come in an evening with their child. So that would be part of the material development so that they could continue that conversation at home, or they could choose to have the conversation at home instead. The standards related to STDs, the team is recommending that happens before the end of 7th grade. Remember, this is still the opportunity for opting out. So if parents don't wish their students to hear that information, they don't have to. And then I think this is the final recommendation regarding implementation. The teams are asking the board to consider a trained professional, a medical professional, or some other type of trained professional or contracted service to provide consistent instruction on the orange topics. So that's a person who comes in and consistently delivers that information rather than relying on outside sources or, like school personnel to step in and teach those conversations. So the process looked like so all of that happened this fall, and then last week, this information was presented at the curriculum coordinating committee. Those team members had a great discussion. There was some back and forth about just a few specific details, and then they decided to take forward the content and the recommendations for your consideration, but they wanted to come back to them once the curricular materials are developed. So they want to be able to see specifically what is that going to look like in a classroom with students before we give it its final approval. So that was the motion that they made. So all of that to say, here's what the process could look like from here. So tonight, we've gone through this, and I'm happy to answer questions. I know there's a ton of stuff. I'm sure you have questions. I'm happy to answer those. there's no action. So from here until the January meeting, we'll dig into it more. You can ask more questions. There's a couple groups that want to visit about it. We can do that too. The committee members know that this is the timeline and they're available and we can answer questions in many instances. And then in January, the board will have this as an action item. You decide what the action is. That's totally up to the board, what the action looks like. You can accept the recommendations, which will start the next step, or you can do really any other kind of action that you guys decide. You can send feedback to the teams. Really, we can take whatever feedback you all decide. Once there is a recommendation made or approval or action of some sort, curriculum development begins in terms of like, what does this look like in the hands of the teacher who's gonna be providing that instruction. The teams thus far have said we like what we have. We really think it's been effective. So that's a lot of the work or the thought behind it is that will look very similar. But that's for those teams and teachers to decide. So that will involve the people actually doing the teaching. It will involve resources available to not only the teacher, but also to parents, the opt-out materials and any other recommendations. So they're gonna get to work and do all that stuff. CCC will look at those materials that have been developed before there's any kind of implementation. At some point down the line, whatever you all recommend is going to be implemented in schools, so it could look like what it's always looked like, or it could look like whatever feedback that you want the team to consider. I will say that it has been a tremendous honor to work with so many committed people. I mean, passionate people who care a lot and were invested, and they're spending a lot of time talking about very tricky subjects, and I feel like they've done an excellent job, and I appreciate our teachers' willingness to share everything they do with full transparency. They were there to answer lots of questions, and I think it's been a really good process so far, and I'd like that to continue. So happy at this point to take any questions. Fill in any blanks.
On the puberty, the recommendation for 3 through 5, do we already do that?
Yes.
Not at third grade though, right?
No, we don't do it third grade, we do it at 4th and 5th.
Okay, because it says, should it begin in 3rd grade?
Yes, that's the implementation recommendation. They're saying that 4th grade, so one of the doctors who's on the committee pulled up kind of the definition of typical puberty, and if it starts before age 8, then it's atypical. So anything 8 and over could be considered typical development. And so the team said that they would like that to happen in 3rd grade. Again, parents can opt out if they want, but they also want it to happen in 4th grade and in 5th grade, and parents can kind of choose when their kids hear it. But that one and done was not sufficient.
And remember,
Yeah, please do.
remember talking about puberty isn't talking about sex. It's talking about our body changing. It's talking about breasts developing, hips developing. It's talking about menstruation starting. It's talking about muscles. It's talking about height. It's talking about physical. It's not talking about other things, but what we're seeing now in society is young ladies starting menstruation at 3rd grade and having no idea what's happening to them because nobody's had that conversation, because we think that it was like me, the 50-year-old, not having that happen until I was 14 or 13 or 12. And now it's happening earlier, but that's just bodies developing sooner. It's not having any other conversation except for you're gonna start to see some changes happening soon. And you need to be aware of these and how to handle them, because it's scary to be a young lady and not know what's happening and not know who to go to ask, because nobody's approached that with you at all. And we know teachers, even at that age, are that's hard. And parents on this committee said, we don't know what to say sometimes to our kids. So that's why they said our recommendation is a parent-student night or parent night, or having medical professionals that can come in and have this conversation. And again, as parents, we can always say, I want to do that, that's my job. But we also know some kids have no parent saying that to them. So that's what the recommendation is. It's not anything beyond what is gonna have to happen, whether you like it or not. when changes start.
What
So-
about emotions and,
So those are conversations I think that are definitely, can happen especially if a student has no one else to talk to. But at this age, we're talking about the physical changes more. And then as you get to, 5th grade, middle school, then we're talking about emotions. And that's how that curriculum's, developed right now.
so like at 3rd through 5th grade, there won't be any discussion about emotions or
Well, I think you
interests
have to
or
have,
relationships?
I think you have to have discussion about emotion because hormones are changing then. So we do see girls that get depressed, or we do that kind
I
of emotion.
understand, yeah, I'm getting at more like relationship
Oh, no.
related emotions.
No.
So let me go back to that real quick.
Interests
No,
in.
that's not happening now, and even in fourth, that's not that conversation. This is just strictly that, the conversation about your body's gonna change. This is that part, which does involve the emotions of the fluctuation, where we get the jokes about PMS and stuff like that. But that's not even happening so much in elementary school. It's scary. It's scary for them. If nobody's having these conversations early. And we're talking about 1 year earlier, but we're also talking about the fact that this is happening.
Well, 2 years earlier though.
Well, it's 4th and 5th grade right now.
Okay,
So we're talking about
I
3rd
think
grade.
whenever I went through, it was just at 5th grade, and so.
So the intent is just the facts of your body changing. And so some of those supplemental resources for parents, we had some parents say like, I would love some strategies on how to talk to my child about why they're having these emotional changes. So in terms of like, I understand why you're feeling that way. Some of this is maybe out of your control, and here's why. Would probably be included in those supplementary things that parents could talk about with their kids, because we did hear, I would love to talk to them about it, but I don't really know what to say. And some of our parents are still a little uncomfortable with those topics too. So providing that opportunity for them.
So I just want to kind of, I don't know, bring it to attention. Like I said, whenever I went through school, it was just in 5th grade. I remember distinctly the day that we had to separate boys and girls. And so I just want to kind of point out like what we decide this time around sets precedence for what's decided in the future. So since I was in school, it has already gone back to 4th and 5th grade. And now we're proposing 3rd through 5th grade. So I just want everybody to be aware and keep that in mind, because it can get too early, and I definitely think 3rd grade is too early.
Yeah, I understand that is a good point, just about how in a short amount of time, relatively short amount of time, those changes have happened. And that recommendation came out of the medical professionals who were sitting there, but it's still,
So at that age group too, I believe it's still recommended that children go for a yearly physical as well. And so that is definitely something that could be brought up in the doctor's office rather than a school setting as well.
I think the required physical is just kindergarten and 6th.
Correct.
Yeah.
The 9th.
Required versus recommended are different though too. Like I took Preston for a yearly physical this year, and he's 6.
Yeah.
He's not going, or he's 7 now, sorry. But he wasn't going into kindergarten. He was going into 1st grade. And I called the doctor's office to check, and they said, yes, a yearly physical is recommended. So I understand that not every parent will do that with their child. However, I do think that this is probably at that age, I would say that it's a conversation to have in the doctor's office rather than in a school setting, so that the doctors can give those prompts to the parents.
Okay, we have another lady raise her hand. Could you please state your name so that we can have it for the record who's speaking?
Yeah, my name is Jody Stamps, and I'm part of the curriculum committee. And I just wanted to say, when we received this chart on Thursday, and I didn't bring it, but I could show you, I'm taking notes, and I on B where it says progressive puberty can vary, I underline that, put a question mark, and I was very, I talked a lot on Thursday, and one of my questions was, what does can vary mean? Does that mean that kids are going to be taught that bodies, Jane gets breasts before Judy, or does that mean that you can choose whether or not you're going to be? Because to me, that was a very vague wording of something that I wanted more specifics about. And it was made clear that it was that everybody develops at different different rates, some boys are gonna get armpit hair before other boys and that kind of a thing. And I think also it being third through fifth I think that's one of the reasons why the curriculum committee wanted to get it back to us, so that we could look at it and say, are they learning the same thing, third, fourth, and fifth grade, or does it start here at third and then build out from there? And that's something that we will be looking at, once the curriculum is developed, if that helps at all.
Kind of, but not really. So it will be voted that the new curriculum will start and then you will develop it from there?
So essentially, the board has to tell us what to develop curriculum around. So that's these standards, right? They're saying, this is what we believe is appropriate in our schools to teach. If the board thinks that, then we develop resources to do it. So then the CCC wants to see, what are the resources? Like you said, you're gonna identify strategies a person could use to call attention to or leave an uncomfortable or dangerous situation. How are you gonna do that? What does that look like? What's the story you're gonna read, or the scenario, or the video? They wanna see those details to know that what they believe to be the intent, kind of what Jody was saying about Barry, what she believes to be the intent, is that actually the intent of what you're using with my child or our children?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm just confused by the whole thing, because if we adopt the new curriculum, we have to follow that new curriculum.
Let me go to this implementation slide, I think it might help.
This looks like we're like making up our own, not following the Illinois.
Can I interrupt real quick? I, for one, am not okay with telling our kids that they can be whoever they want to be. Okay? And I think that there's a lot of members on the board that are the same way. I know Heidi is, I know Michelle is, I know I am. I'm not going to speak for that side of the table, but we're not planning to introduce some radicalized agenda.
I'm just making sure that we're going about it in the correct
I
way
get
though,
it.
because
I
if you vote in
100%
the
get
new
it.
stuff, then there are rules that you have to follow when you're teaching.
Can
I get it.
interject something too? Just
Okay,
to that
so we
point.
have-
Excuse me, Mr. Hadley had asked to
Go
speak
ahead,
next,
Mr.
and then Mrs. Armstrong, and then you.
I just have a quick question, and that is, she raised a thing about medical. See, when I'm hearing medical, how qualified are the teachers that are teaching the sex ed program medically? Because you know, and I know, that you can mess with a kid's psyche. If you don't know what you're doing, you can really mess them up. And I'll be honest, we have students coming to us that have come out of the public school system dealing with anxiety because they're scared in the sex ed program. They're in the sex ed program, they're told to choose their pronouns. They're told in math classes, one not here, but in a neighboring town, which will remain unmentioned, there was a math teacher that gave them a story problem that had two prostitutes and two, instead of two apples and two oranges. It was, come on. Who are the people that are going to be implementing this, and are they going to be qualified? Do you understand my question?
I do, and I appreciate the medical, like the medical accuracy, right? That's kind of what you're getting at, like, how do we know? So that was actually the advisory team's recommendation also, was we want it to be a vetted person who either has a medical background or who we hire and train on these specific standards and the specific content.
That's the intent, but what happens often is if you need it, you guys teach health class today because we don't have a health teacher. You know that happens.
Oh, I see what you're saying, like if there's a sub, you mean?
Yeah, so, or just that you don't have the funding to hire the medical.
And that'll be a decision of the board ultimately about
Who's gonna teach this
allocating resources and hiring. And Dave does a great job in his office of recruiting and
You know what I'm saying? That's my concern.
Right.
I'm asking you to think about it when that day comes, because I know what's gonna happen.
appreciate that.
Okay, Mrs. Armstrong, you were next.
Cheryl Armstrong, and I just want to say, I suspect that there's probably very few of you in this room that have not seen some of the videos of school board meetings around this nation and what is coming up. And I agree totally with what Pastor Hayford is saying. When math class is writing math problems based on that, it's not the sex ed curriculum, obviously, but I think that the sex ed curriculum has been, it's been written so vaguely that you can really put anything in there that you want, and that's the scary thought. Because if it's showing up in math class, that's a problem.
You know, your concern is, I think, why the direction was to issue some local control. Like, say, okay, there are these national standards. In our community, we don't feel like that is the direction that our community wants to go. We'd like there to be this local committee who looks at what's in there that's relevant for what we, as a advisory team that's comprised of parents and all different people, what we would like to be included. And so because of that, that's why it's whittled down to this amount instead of the 167 that were proposed at the federal and at the state level. We can exercise that local control by using our teachers and parents and people who are closest to the students. And then ultimately the board can take those recommendations or ask for different recommendations. But yeah, if you just blindly adopt really anything, you know, you're going to end up having challenges implementing, whether that's reading or math, or in this instance, these types of standards.
Okay, Angela?
Thanks. I'm Angela Hampton, and just a few things that I asked the board to consider through this process, based primarily just on my experiences of mom raising 3 girls. I don't really have a dog in the fight anymore because my oldest is in high school. And I mentioned before that Christy was just really good about bringing me the curriculum before my girls would experience that in school so that I could review that and teach that to them first on a home level. So a couple of things on my experience. First of all, I'd like you to consider what opt-out really means. Because the fact of the matter is that when you have a preteen or a teenager and their friends are going to be sitting in these classes and you say, nope, I'm going to pull you out. They're embarrassed. They want to know where they're going to sit. What are their friends going to say? Who else is going to be out with them? Are people going to make fun of them? So those are considerations that, you know, where at certain points we've been told that actually this would be an opt-in, and that's not the case. It is going to be an opt-out. And so what position are we putting those children in where they feel essentially forced to sit through this curriculum? It's not as easy as just saying opt out. When you're a parent with a prepubescent or pubescent teenager, it's not that easy. The second thing is that I'd ask you to consider why essentially every other district chose the first option, which was don't take this at all. We didn't have to do this. We chose to go through this. Other districts said, no, we're going to do our own thing. We don't need these standards at all. So I would want to do the research as to why they made that decision. The third thing, and I think this sort of piggybacks off of what the 4 of you said, is that our concern and in my experience is that when you open the door to topics such as this, you start to lose control. 2 cases in point. And I want to say before I go any farther that I have spoken to Mr. Pugh, and we have an excellent working relationship. My kids have had a great experience at the middle school. So I don't mean this to be a negative reflection. Our administrators, our principals cannot be in every classroom all the time. It's impossible. But in the last month alone, my 7th grader, during an SEL lesson that was supposed to be about bullying, was told that people are born with their sex and they choose their gender. Then there was a tweet that went essentially viral by a 7th grade teacher that was questioning how she could avoid teaching XX and XY chromosomes in a science class. So these things that get woven into every class, which is I think what we're saying our fear is. And so if we're opening the door a little bit farther and a little bit younger and incorporating more of these things, how can we realistically regulate that in every classroom? We can't. We can't. And that's where I think, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I think that's part of our fear.
Right.
Okay, I have another gentleman in the back.
Thank you.
If you would state your name so they can record it.
Yeah, my question is, Christie.
Dave.
Dave Miller.
Oh.
I work for the school district, Christie. My question in 3rd grade is, 8 years old is the standard, okay? How many kids on the national level go into puberty at 8 years old?
That's a great question.
Okay, is it 5%, 10, 80? But I really don't care at the national level. We have approximately 250 8-year-olds in the Mattoon School District along with St. John's. That's what I care about. So if there's only 1% or 2% in the Mattoon School District that's going into puberty at 8 years old, if we deal with them 1 or 2%, we don't deal with everybody
Right.
at 8 years old.
Right.
Now, when you're talking big city numbers, you're talking thousands of kids and thousands. Yeah, the odds are gonna go up. There's definitely more of them. But in the Mattoon School District, has anybody put out a number on how many kids are going into puberty at 8 years old?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm guessing under 5%. That's probably a realistic number. The 5% are important, but are you gonna go through the other 90% or 95% for that challenge? That's a tough challenge. Anyway, that's,
Thank you. Yeah,
that's my
and that's something the board can consider as they look at those recommendations, you know, you can kind of take that into consideration. And if that's information I don't really know how we would get that actually, but it is a really good question. I think there's probably some statistics, but I don't know if we have it to this level, but I appreciate that point, yeah.
Can I make another clarifying point, because I still feel like there's confusion on something. The national standards and the state standards. When we met, we have decided to keep what is our current curriculum.
That's not what was voted, though.
No, what was voted was we would look at the other things, right? It was never, we have never, and I've been to all the board meetings. We've never said we would take those. We said that we would form a committee that would look at it from our local level and make a decision. And what the committee decided was the curriculum we have been doing is what we would like to continue with these.
With these additions from that curriculum. That's
Sorry,
our concern.
with these additions
For implementation.
for implementation. Like, we're not changing the curriculum.
So what I witnessed, and Christy, you correct, so we have what we've always done.
Yes.
And we went to the National Sex Education Standards and took their numbers and aligned it with what we've always done. We're now married, like that's what we did. We took their codes to say, if we're talking about body safety in the National Sex Education Standard, it's number 1.1. We took that number and put it in our existing curriculum to align it with the National Sex Education Standards.
But we didn't change our curriculum.
Correct,
We
which
just
is
made
back to the
a different
question.
number from whatever it was prior to that. That's all we did.
But we've aligned the standards with the National Sex Education. We picked those standards that fit with what we're doing. So there is an alignment. So it was
aligned before too, though. I mean, we had to align somewhere, right? We've always had to align with standards.
Correct.
So we're just aligning with what the new standards were that came out. We didn't change what we're
So
doing.
but are you saying there's nothing new then? None of this is new? Nothing
The
new
only,
is
the only new
is
parts
on
are
this
the
sheet.
recommendations that we
Implementation
are,
recommendations are new.
that's it. That's the only part that's new.
Which just begs the question that no one has been able to answer. Why are we here?
Right.
If we love our local curriculum, if it's, I've written down 5 times that we said, oh, we like our local, we want existing curriculum, we want to stay with the same thing we've always done. This is what everyone's like. Why are we here? Keep what we have.
Yeah, right.
We don't need to be here.
So
We've just opened the Pandora box.
So Dr. Hill, may I ask a question?
Yes.
So we have not yet made any changes, correct?
No, we're doing the same thing
And these recommendations are going through the process for us to make a decision on whether or not we want to look at the standards. This is not a curriculum change yet, because the curriculum coordinating committee wants to see any proposed curriculum before it's taught.
Correct.
So we're talking about, do we want to look at our standards and make these implementations that were recommended by an advisory committee that I believe we had 2 board members sit on?
Yes.
Okay. So
And
even if we were to vote on those to adopt them, we still have to go through a process of the curriculum, correct?
Yes.
Is there a check and balance once the board votes on it, that it goes back to the curriculum committee?
That was the motion that was made. So the curriculum committee said, we will recommend that the board considers these, what you just saw. But we want to see it again before it's implemented. So that was the motion.
So once they see it again, does it go back to the
Yep.
board for final?
Yeah.
Okay, and the lady in the front.
My name is Danielle Trier, and I just have 3 random questions here. Number 1, can you explain to us how the opt-out works? Because I've homeschooled for years and years. I have one kid at the high school, started back into public school in 8th grade to play sports. And I was never given an option. I know at 8th grade, that's fine, but in high school, I've never been given an option to opt out, which is something that I feel I should have been. I was given an option to opt out of a movie and a book that they were going to read, but I've never been given that option.
And is your son in health class now?
No, he's done now. He's done.
But he already took it?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Online through e-learning. So my other child running through the house heard all of the STD talk, all of that. So I'm
the
just curious.
opt-out, the way the opt-out works now is that I, through Skyward, email every parent, I mean, it just is a group email for every parent in all my classes. And I attach all the growth and development slides and all the videos that I show in class for that. And I try and send it at least 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks in advance, so that you have plenty of time to, and especially, it really, Ms. Hampton, when she spoke at one of the board meetings, made me think, yeah, that would give you, I mean, we just do it, right? But I really thought, I maybe want to send it a week earlier than I have or whatever, because if you want to have some of that conversation beforehand, then it's not just, oh, I looked it over. Because I get a lot of comments from parents who say, oh, I looked it over, that was great. Or kids that say, come back and say, my mom says you got an email from you and I have to watch that, you know, or I have to sit through that or whatever, that it's important. So I tried to, like this last year, I've tried to send it even a week earlier than I normally do, so that people have time to not only look it over, but have conversations with their students about that. So if now this is what I cannot guarantee, if the parent's email is correct in Skyward, then it's getting to them. If a parent doesn't update an email or when their email changes since registration, I can't. But we used to send it home on a piece of paper, and I can't tell you how many times it never made it out of a backpack or never made it out of a.
What about in the younger years, like third and
In the middle school, it's actually a paper form. It's a piece of paper. Elementary, it's also a letter that just said, I mean, currently it's a little cartoon video. It's like 15 minutes. It's probably similar to what we've seen. But a letter just goes home and says, next week or in 2 weeks or on this date, the school nurse or the principal is going to go over this video. If you don't want your child to participate, send that back. So that's the current practice.
Okay. I have 2 other questions, because April, I was confused about the voting as well, because per your minutes, April 5th, 2022 is when you guys voted to do the option 3, which was to take it back, kind of go through and look through their standards, and this is what use local processes to modify the NSES. And so my question is, I mean, I'm kind of like with Heidi, like option 1 was just to opt out. And the information that I found is there are 20 schools out of, 534 are opting out. 20 schools have adopted it. So my question is, it's kind of like that. Why would we adopt anything different? What part of our system is broken that we need to fix? And you're the
we
one
fix
that,
it without, we just fix it on our own.
without adopting
engaging.
Everybody's saying that we like the stuff that we've always had, so then why did it get voted for option 3, which was yes to adopt it, but with changes, or to align it with what we've already got? So like
It was to review it, to
if
look
we
it over.
like everything that we currently have, then we should just opt out of
I
the
think that
national
may actually be a
standards.
good question for the board. So we did this work based on, there were 3 options, right? And
So that's why I'm wondering, why are we even here if we like Heidi said, why are we even here if the recommendations by the committees or whatever is to keep the current standards? So why are we even doing any of this?
Can you clarify, is that the recommendation of the committees to keep the current standards, or from what I just saw, there were some additional recommendations and some implementation that they would like to see if we were to adopt anything? So again, we did not adopt anything yet, nothing
You
has
did vote
changed.
for that in April.
Actually, we did not, and so here's the thing.
That's what the third
Please
option
let me finish
was.
though, because I'm trying to reassure you, but every time I do that, it's taken as me I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. I am trying to reassure you, and our teachers have told you, our administration has told you, nothing has changed. We did
Not
not,
yet.
we did not adopt those recommendations. What we have done is, no, we did not. That's why she's here.
So
That's
I
what
can,
the
I
ask
can
is
actually,
now.
like with April, what
I
happened
think
was.
you're mistaken on what you voted for.
No,
So option one is basically, was like no sex ed, right? That was option one.
No,
Option
it was to keep the current standards.
Opt out.
I believe. It was to
Well,
keep the current
so
standards
our
and
legal
opt out
advice-
of the national
I
new.
think the board's, and maybe a board member wants to speak to this rather than me, but is it okay if I do? Okay. I think the legal advice that was given to the board was that if you don't go through a local process to at least consider and align, you can keep what you're doing, but if you don't consider and align, you are out of compliance with state requirements and you can't teach any sex ed. So that was
the 534
That's not
other
true.
schools.
I mean, our local school districts are doing it, Christie.
I'm not,
Can
I'm
you call
just
the question?
sharing what the board was advised.
Oh, we didn't even make a motion yet.
I'm sorry.
There won't be a motion.
And I think that's in the separate mechanism, but that was the advice the board was
Do
giving
we
at that
currently have sex ed or do we call it health? So we don't currently have sex ed, we currently call it health, which is what those other districts are going to continue to do, which is why they didn't adopt it or look at it. You just call it health.
I'm not sure, but I don't know.
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
So we don't currently have sex ed, we currently have health. And that's how the other districts, the 500 and some odd districts, are avoiding this process. They're going to maintain health classes like we currently have and not have sex ed. So that's why.
That's what we want.
That's why we had the three options. We could maintain what we have and call it health and not have sex ed, which is the current situation. So.
And to be clear, we still can.
Right.
Okay,
But
I'm
what
just,
are the, I
to be clear,
understand that, but
the option's
recommend-
not,
Right,
that option's
yes.
not been cut off
I understand.
by the fact that the board chose
Yes.
to look at them or have a group look at them.
I understand that. We
Okay.
just feel like the likelihood of that is less and less with every month spent looking at this and digging
I
into
understand,
it.
and I appreciate all of the concern, but let's be clear that, and I wasn't on the board in April, but the choice to just look at all 174
A lot.
or 5 standards doesn't preclude not changing anything. It's just becoming better informed on what all 170 some were. That's my, I mean.
Okay, so it was
And
my.
we're here because we're afraid. We want you to understand how we feel about it. We're not arguing your point.
So.
Well, I do think there's been some confusion, and Cassie, I appreciate your willingness to get up and talk, but I think there has been some misinformation out there, I'm sure it's unintentional, about the April board vote. I mean, I'm reading the language from the statute. The word adopt doesn't appear anywhere in the
Well,
statute.
you also misread some other language in policies
I'm sorry?
a couple meetings ago.
And we're just.
Okay, can I just have
That was, but-
Mrs. Sears? Trier.
Did you have
Trier.
another question? at
She
third?
had her hand up
I just had,
first.
like, when we were at the last meeting, I think it was you, Overton. I think it was you that said that if we do not look at it, we don't adopt it, we cannot teach abstinence, is what the deal was.
That is what
Is
that's
that
my
the-
understanding, that
And that's
But
that's why
that's
you wanted
why.
to look at it, and that was
Yes.
the reasoning behind.
we can't have,
adopting
if we don't adopt it, we're not allowed to talk about any sex. Am I correct?
I
No
don't-
sex ed whatsoever, and it is important.
But we are now.
But we are already.
Right?
But see,
In
these
health
standards, yes, we are now, you're
Okay,
correct,
that's
we
it.
are.
Okay.
But since these standards have come out, we have to do one of these three options, which I'm reviewing again. One was adopt all of them. No. That's, recommend no sex ed. Well, if we do that, then we can't even talk on the abstinence.
But we can in health class. That's what those
So
other
I-
districts are doing.
I think what's happened is that we're kind of in this grace period right now, and it would require an audit, right, if someone to say you're doing something wrong. But again, this is the legal advice the board was given, and we're carrying out what you guys wanted us to do, and I think that there's still decisions to be made, absolutely, but we're in a grace period. So we're doing what we have always done because we're in review of the new state standards.
Okay.
I think when we look at that less than 4% is looking at this, that I think part of the research that needs to be done is, are these other school districts, 500 and some, are they teaching a health curriculum? And the answer, I would surmise, is yes. And so how are they getting around that, doing health? And so I feel like the legal advice we got in April was untrue, that it was an all or nothing. That is not the case. And so I think that's, to me, we're putting the cart before the horse tonight. Number one, we need to know, if we go back to what we've always done, can we teach health education, like Rebecca, like you've talked about, and what all of this collaboratively says, we like what we've always done. Can we do that? Without. Number two, I don't feel like as a board, we should ever agree. I mean, we have an oath to create transparency and communication to parents, children, and community members, that without seeing the specific lessons and curriculum, there's no way I would vote for any of this. Like, I want to see within 2 clicks, every parent have access to say, when we say body safety, I want to look at, here's what the teacher is going to teach. And then I want to know what are the qualifications, because that was a concern, that teachers didn't feel comfortable teaching this stuff. And as a board, we need to make sure that these people feel qualified and medically prepared, and if that's hiring. But also, we found out that there's outside sources coming in to teach part of our health curriculum. Well, who are these people and what are they teaching? And that opens us up to this door of like, what are we going to oversee? And so the other thing that I have a great concern about the National Sex Education Standards, it is not accredited. You would never adopt a science, a math, any other curriculum that is not accredited. So this, we don't have any data on this curriculum, we don't have any information, and I think if we could stay where we're at for a year, maybe 18 months, I don't know how long, let's do what has been working, and let's look at the data that comes out on these national sex ed standards with less than 4% of the state of Illinois. Not to mention, we are the only state in Illinois that's adopted the second version of this. No other states are taking it. So to me, I feel like we're kind of railroading this through. And I agree with the opt-out. I'm worried about the opt-out. We've talked about an opt-in, to have parents opt in. And quite honestly, the majority of our students in our community don't have parents like all of you. They're not here, they're not learning, they're not getting information. And so they are automatically going to be put in classes and information. And who's protecting them? That's our job. That's our job, to protect these students that don't have parents. And so I think we need more information and education before we look at this in January, before we move forward.
Hey, Mr. Miller?
Ron Miller. Was the school board giving legal advice on teaching self-education, not the health education we've been getting? If they're giving on the new one, well, so you opt out. I mean, you don't even do it. You do what we've been doing, just like how you said. If the board is, my question to you though is you given the legal advice on teaching sex education? Were you, or what was your legal advice given on? Not teaching health education, it was probably given on sex education, the new state or federal standard. Is that right?
I'm confused with your question. So are you asking if the legal advice was a sex education?
Your board was given legal advice, probably on the sex education, this new type of plan.
We were given the 3 options that she spoke about earlier.
I think
legal advice.
I think what he's trying to say is, were you guys given advice legally on whether to stay with the health portion of it, or were you just given advice?
Well, I mean, legal
on the sex
advice
portion
that
of it?
if you opt out, you're in a problem of the new sex education classes. Because we haven't been going on sex education classes, we've been going on health education, correct? Mm-hmm. Well, you can probably stay with it and you don't have a legal problem.
I think that's what Angela was saying also, is it because it's a class? And I think, again, feel free to jump in, but I believe what the legal advice, I don't know if it was specific to a sex education class or sex education curriculum, but it was either opt out altogether or adopt it all, don't do any, or look at it and pick what parts of it are locally applicable.
That was my opinion. That's what I thought.
And so I think those were the choices that were presented in April, and then that kind of kick-started all of this.
Yes, Cassie?
So I just wanted to say that whenever I was going through high school, if it's the same health class that we had whenever I was going through, we did talk about STDs, we did talk about sex, we did talk about reproductive systems, male and female condoms, oral contraceptives, the timing method, we talked about all of that. And so it came across with a very scientific viewpoint though, which I appreciated because that truly is what a health class is learning the scientific functions. There's no shame in it, all of that. But whenever you adopt the new sex education standards, that's where it gets fuzzy
No,
and you're
it's gonna stay
talking
the same,
about.
Cassie. It's gonna stay the same, Cassie. It's not gonna be.
Then why do you need any of the new part?
My understanding is because if we did not do local control of these,
Then it would stay as a health class.
it's gonna stay as a health class.
Which is sufficient, that's my point,
Yeah,
because
it's
I
gonna
did
stay-
learn about all of the sex stuff
Right,
in
no, it's all
health.
gonna be health.
So we don't need the new stuff, is my point.
And
I wonder if we need to maybe, in between now and the next time we get together, it sounds like there's some clarification that needs to be sought from the board's perspective potentially, and one of the angles we could ask about specifically is this question about if it's called a different class. Does that matter? So I think your comments have raised some good things for some work that can be done in the next month, and then you guys can decide what you want the agenda to look like in January, right? Like that's up to you all. So, and as you go through this stuff and you have more questions, like we're a phone call away, and we would love to be able to know what's on everyone's mind and what we need to find out. And we've got a lot of people who would be happy to answer questions too, so.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. And I really do mean when I say I appreciate it, there's a lot of people who care, I think that's really nice.
Item 6, reports and recommendations. The superintendent.
I have two items. This first item, the board's been provided with the 43 changes to board policy. The majority of those changes, if you've read through those, include some 5-year reviews of board policy, and they include some footnote changes as well as some legal references that are being updated. So there's no action in regards to those board policies, but encourage board members to reach out if they have any questions when they review those. So those will hopefully, if the board would approve or look to take action on those at the January 10th meeting. Item 7.2 is board action to approve the adjustment in wage schedule for bus drivers, mail carriers, and bus van washer. Those are the category positions in which you've probably heard us speak, and the board will recall at the November meeting, we sought the board's approval and were granted with that to move forward with a memorandum of understanding. And that memorandum of understanding with the MESPA Association specifically outlined an agreement in order to collapse some wage steps and make some adjustments in that for those bus drivers, mail carrier, as well as the bus van washer. So to offer some background into why are we at this point, over the course since July of 2021, and the board is aware of this in the notes that were provided, we have received 4 bus applicants to come and work at Mattoon School District. We've had bus openings, Dave, for well beyond the 18 months. Of those 4 applicants, 2 were not qualified and 2 were. Of that, those 2 that were qualified were offered positions, 1 accepted and 1 declined. So, and Dave, you see this on a daily basis. There's definitely a need, not just in our district, but districts across the state, across the nation in regards to transportation. So this is another opportunity in which we hope will encourage folks to consider applying and receiving licensure to become a bus driver for us. So ultimately, we're seeking the board's approval to increase the minimum wage in the salary scale from $15.41 to $20 to start out. And instead of there being 31 steps, that will be compressed to 3 steps. And again, this has been done through the bargaining process with the Mesco Association leadership. Dave, you want to share anything in addition to that?
Been great to work with, and that's part of the MOU that the board agreed to for us to act upon in working with the association. So I think it's a fair wage, it's competitive area wages for bus drivers as we're seeing those increase, and not only in the private sector, not only in the public sector, but the private sector as well. So I feel confident that will help market and increase potential candidates. Again, to retain the bus drivers we have, that's just as important.
Yeah,
I can tell you about 3 weeks ago, we were literally a person away from shutting down about 6 routes that day. So it's that we're there.
All right, I'm going to have a motion and a second, then I'll take your question. I need a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding, please. Motion by Erica.
Second.
By Ashley. Now, questions of the board?
I have a comment. I actually heard an advertisement today about bus drivers earning $20 an hour, so I can understand how that's a problem. But I do have one question. So the 31 steps that are now condensed to 3, can you confirm that that will not allow us to have less qualified people? It's just a simpler process.
It's just, well, yes, one, simpler process, 31 to 3 steps, yeah, definitely. But what it does then is it makes us more competitive in going out and recruiting people that have existing CDLs and bus licensures and marketing the district and bringing those people in to fill these. I have 2 retirements coming in in January.
I just wanted to just make sure that we clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, one question?
Yes, I noticed on the sheet, it doesn't say bus aides. I'm senior bus aide, I've been there since 2007. I'm one of the few that disagree with the majority of our people. I know we have a dire emergency out there. Aides and drivers. So we've corrected the drivers, I applaud you. But we need corrected the aides too. If you're gonna hire the drivers higher, you need to hire the aides because we don't have them either. I think somebody forgot that. We're short on both. We don't have no subs for either one. I'm gonna be retiring soon, some others are gonna be retiring. We can't get anybody to work anywhere. So maybe they'll work if they're not starting at the minimum wage of $13 an hour. Maybe if they're starting 16 or 17, they'll work. Yeah, when they start at 17, they're making my wage. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. I happened to be hired back then. I'm not asking for $3 or $4 more because I'm the senior aide. We have an emergency. We gotta take care of it.
Appreciate that.
Just my thought.
Okay.
Is there a reason we didn't? I honestly don't know. That we didn't increase them?
We, the board approved additional aides. Dave, is that correct? You've seen additional aides on bus routes.
What's that?
You've seen additional aides added to bus routes here in the last 2 months.
Yeah, we have got a couple.
So-
I don't know how many. We have got a couple though.
So-
I've seen new ones.
So a part of the solution from the association's perspective initially was, can we add some support currently in order to assist with more students on the bus because we can't find drivers to distribute students across more routes. So the solution, again, from MESPA's perspective was, can we add additional bus aides? So that part solved a portion of the problem, and now this part is hopeful to solve another portion of the problem. But again, David, I think you bring up a good point, and I think we would be willing to listen. And I would encourage you to talk with MESPA leadership, just because that's where it has to start on our end.
I see.
So appreciate that, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Kelly, will you please call roll?
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Skinlow.
Yes. Okay, item 8, we don't have any other reports. no unfinished business, but under item 10.1, board action to release confidential opinion dated October 23rd, 2022. Do you want to address that or?
Sure.
Just go
So, the board, I believe this was back in October, following maybe it was out of the October 11th board meeting. It was asked by a board member to seek our district attorney's opinion. And then on October 17th, President Skinlow directed me to reach out to the district attorney to seek an opinion in regards to an email that was requested at that time. So I guess that's where that sits, at least from our perspective. That opinion was shared with board members when it was received. It's considered confidential information because of attorney-client privilege between the board and the attorney, but it was then requested to add this to the agenda item by President Skinlow to consider the release of this information. So
That was under the direction of Mrs. Larson asking for that. So I need a motion to approve the release of the opinion from the October 23rd.
So moved.
Dale Ryder made a motion, second? Second. By Ashley Overton. Are there any questions or comments?
I'll make a comment. This is a little unusual for a client to vote to release an opinion they've received from their attorney. But I think that this is an unusual circumstance and hopefully can provide a little clarity and maybe hopefully put this to rest so we can focus a little more intently on the business of the board.
And I do have copies if anybody would like. So.
I think it's unusual because a client doesn't have to ask privilege to share information that's.
Right,
given.
because the client's a group of people rather than one person. Fair enough.
Kelly, will you call roll?
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Weaver,
No.
Ryder,
Yes.
Skinlow.
Yes. Okay. The opinion is released, so if you have a copy of this?
Yes.
Okay, and if anybody would like a copy, I do have those here. So, get back to my other page, sorry. We need to go into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees at 9:08. Motion by Erica, second by Ashley. Any questions? Will you please call roll? Well, no, we can't call roll because, yes, we do call roll on that, I'm sorry. Please call roll.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Skinlow.
Yes.
and there's no action to come out of executive session, so just to let the press know, we won't reconvene to take any action.
Thank you and have a blessed Christmas.
Yeah.